Welcome back to the Earth Intuitive Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Nelson, an Ayurvedic health counselor, and this podcast is a hub for sensitive and intuitive women to feel comforted, supported, and whole in their healing journey. Today, we're going to talk about a concept and a topic that's near and dear to my heart, coffee, America's favorite drink. 66 to 75% of Americans drink coffee every single day. So this is going to target a lot of you. We're going to get into the pros, the cons of coffee, how Ayurveda views coffee, who it's good for, who it may not be good for, the history of coffee, and ways that you can make your coffee healthier and ways to ease off of it if you feel you want to do so. So let's go ahead and dive in. This is something that I've been so fascinated to learn about. There's so many different facets of coffee. And I would say, like with anything, with any substance, whether it be coffee, marijuana, alcohol, maybe it's a specific type of food or even an herb, ashwagandha, it can either be a medicine or a poison depending on where we are in our lives, who we are in our bodies, and what the purpose is for. So if you are a coffee drinker, this is for you. If you are wanting to change your relationship to coffee, this is for you. If you just want more education to share with your family and friends, this podcast episode is also for you. So I'm going to just share a brief story of my love story with coffee, where I'm at with it now, and then we're going to get into more of the Ayurvedic and holistic lens around this beautiful, potent drink. So some of my earliest memories of drinking coffee was in high school. I was involved in many, many different activities. I would say I was probably overdoing it. I personally think that getting teenagers up super early in the morning and then having them go to school all day, do homework, do after school, before school activities, that's a lot. And I just remember being tired all the time. I was eating junk food. I wasn't super healthy. And so to get through that, especially in the morning, especially when I would have those dreaded 6 a.m. drill team practices at my school, which I absolutely loathed, I got through my day by going to Starbucks early in the morning. And at the time, Starbucks was kind of this new, really cool thing, and it felt really fancy. I would go to my neighborhood barista. He knew my name, and I would get a white chocolate raspberry mocha, lots of sugar, so good. It was the only thing that got me out of bed. So my relationship to coffee began because I was feeling like I was out of alignment with my body's natural rhythms because I had to. I had to get up really early. Naturally, as a teenager, I would go to sleep past 1 a.m. usually. It's just kind of how my body was. And so I really operated off of a lot of substances. I would have caffeine during the week. I'd have Monster energy drinks sometimes during lunch. I would party and drink on the weekends. You know, that's a lot of our stories, and that's just how it was. So my relationship to coffee felt almost forced a bit, but at the same time, it was a treat. It was a treat that would get me out of bed. I added a lot of sugar to it. I remember being at the mall when the mall was a cool thing to do, and I would go to the Nordstrom Cafe and get my Frappuccino with lots of whipped cream, and I just loved my coffee. I loved, getting out of that state of feeling miserable and exhausted to being able to function. And that's how so many people in our modern world use coffee. Now, fast forward to my mid-20s. This is when my sensitivity really began to kind of show itself more. I was doing yoga teacher training. I was getting more and more into holistic healing. I was also working a full-time job in copywriting at the time. I still drank coffee every single day. But I knew at that time I was changing my relationships and starting to just become aware of how things were affecting me more and more. And so by, I would say, my late 20s, even early 30s, I remember I went to an acupuncturist and she said to me, if you just dropped coffee, your symptoms may go away. I didn't want to hear it at the time. I got really offended and I kept drinking my coffee. Now, in my early 30s, that's when I really did start to shift things a bit more. I would say even late 20s, early 30s. I started adding ashwagandha to my coffee. Ashwagandha is an Ayurvedic herb that really treats anxiety. It's an adaptogen. It helps balance the stress in our body. And I would make sure I had cream in my coffee. And I would maybe only drink a cup a day. And then I knew I wanted to shift my relationship to coffee. It was giving me gastrointestinal issues. I've kind of had lifelong stomach sensitivity and GI issues. It would make me go to the bathroom really too fast, loose stools. And it would also just make me feel jittery because I started meditating at that time. And when you stop and pause and you do a yoga practice or you meditate, you can feel the jitteriness in your body. And sometimes it takes pausing and tuning in. So I knew I wanted to change my relationship to it. So what I started doing is over the course of many years, it took me a really long time, I kind of naturally just started to decrease my amount. So instead of having a double shot latte, I would start having a single shot latte, maybe a chai, dirty chai with just one shot of espresso. Later on, I found this brand that I still recommend today called Rasa. They have adaptogenic blends, and there's a version called Dirty. So they have an adaptogenic blend with all sorts of adaptogenic herbs in there, chicory, other things that kind of mimic the bitterness of coffee. And then they had a dirty version with a little bit of coffee added to it. I'm going to add all these healthy resources to my free school community if you want to follow up then. So I started to, over time, decrease my relationship to coffee. And the more I would decrease, the more caffeine would actually affect me if I had normal coffee. Today, I am coffee-free. I still have caffeine through chai and black tea. I'm still decreasing that. We'll get into that in a moment. But I really want to walk you through a little bit more education and information about coffee so that you can make an informed decision, that if you love your coffee, you can make little tweaks so that you can enjoy it better and not feel that shame around it, because coffee isn't all bad, but there are considerations to it. So let's do a really brief, super brief history on coffee. Where does it come from? So a goat herder named Kali in 9th century Ethiopia was the one who discovered coffee, and they started it as food. They noticed that it was energizing them so they could keep watch over the flock. This eventually later, I believe in the 15th century, turned more into a drink. Fast forward to when coffee came to America. In the early days of America, they would call them coffee houses. This is Your Mind on Plants book by Michael Pollan, an excellent read. I highly recommend it. He has a very thoroughly researched chapter or chapters on coffee and the effects and kind of where it came from. These coffee houses were sort of these revolutionary places where people came and they talked about politics and they started to raise questions. They became more intellectual. It is a stimulant, and so it really helps your mind stay sharp. Now, this was very controversial because people started to question authority. They started to question the government. So it has a really cool history. And then fast forward to now, we have all sorts of different blends from all over the world. And if you are health conscious, you may have heard about mycotoxins. These are toxins found from fungi growth, from mold. And so because coffee is transported on ships from other parts of the world, there's exposure to mold. And so that can be one of the downfalls of your coffee, is they may not be organic. Maybe they're sprayed. Maybe there's some traces of mycotoxins in there that can cause health issues over time. So that's just a couple of things to be aware of. Now people are getting a lot more picky about their coffees. They want organic, they want low acid, they want toxin free. So luckily there's amazing brands coming up with this. But this is just really important to know about, where you're sourcing your coffee from, and how you make your coffee is going to change so very much. So let's shift into the Ayurvedic viewpoint of coffee. What does Ayurveda say about coffee in general? It says it depends on your dosha. So if you don't know what a dosha is, you can watch my free training, Ayurveda 101 on my free school community. I go through all three of the doshas. Doshas translate to imbalances. They can also be energetic types in our body and our mind. So we have the three main types: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. I'm not going to go over them right now in this podcast. Otherwise, I would be going over them every single podcast. However, in general, coffee is really good for the Kapha dosha. So the Kapha dosha are folks with the combination of water and earth elements. So there's not a lot of air and there's not a lot of fire. Coffee itself is very energizing, stimulating. So it already has the elements of fire and air. It stimulates the mind. It stimulates the digestive system. So it increases those energies. So those of you who have Pitta, which is primarily fire, or Vata, which is primarily air, if you have a lot of that dosha going on in your body, you're either going to want to avoid coffee or drink it very mindfully, and we'll get into that in a bit. So those of you who feel super lethargic, maybe you have trouble staying awake, maybe you sleep 9 hours a night, or maybe you take naps, maybe it's hard for you to get going in the morning, it's hard for you to go exercise, maybe you don't need a lot of food. Maybe you don't have a super fiery digestive system. You just feel overall sluggish. Coffee in healthy doses can actually be a medicine for you. And we are actually heading into Kapha season as we're coming into late winter into early spring. So if you're feeling a lot of Kaphic tendency in your body, in your mind, a little bit of coffee may actually be medicine for you. Of course, you need to kind of gauge how you feel afterward. If you feel a lot of acidity in your body, if you feel really jittery and you're like, that was too much, maybe just don't do that. And you could do a little bit of a gentler form of caffeine. But coffee has this drying and energizing effect to it. So if you have too much stagnancy in your body, if you have too much water retention in your body, it can help dry things out and get things moving. So let's get into some of my favorite ways to drink coffee. First things first, when you wake up in the morning, we are already waking up with a higher level of cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that creates more stress and alertness in the body. So we always want to make sure to hydrate before we drink coffee. That's the number one most important thing. Give yourself some time and hydration before you get your coffee first thing in the morning. I always tell my one-on-one clients before they have their coffee, it's important to have warm water first thing. So if you have that Kapha tendency, you can put some fresh squeeze of lemon in that warm water, maybe a pinch of ginger. That's going to get your digestive system moving in itself, and that might just be enough. So if you wake up in the morning, you scrape your tongue, you brush your teeth, splash your face, get some fresh air in your house, maybe open a window, go outside. That's amazing for your circadian rhythm cycle. Drink your warm water. Maybe you want to have a sit mindfully with your water. Maybe you want to go outside with your water. Give yourself, I would say minimum a half hour, if not more, before you put caffeine into your body. That's number one. That's going to help enormously because you may not even want to have that giant cup of coffee if you've given yourself that natural time to wake up. Number two, notice, are you drinking black coffee with no food? This is not so great for your body. Here's why. Coffee is very acidic and bitter in nature. Again, we're already waking up with a lot of cortisol in the body. And so if you're not feeding your body with healthy fats or protein first, and you're regulating your blood sugar levels, you're giving yourself that necessary protein, especially if you're a woman, that's when we can get the jitters so much easier, when we're not giving ourselves that nourishment first. We wake up with a higher cortisol level and we wake up feeling hungry for nourishment. And so if the first thing you put in your body is black coffee, it may create a lot of issues down the road. So first things first, if you want to have your coffee, you can either put some cream in it, so that has that natural fat, a tiny bit of protein. You can put butter in it or ghee. This is called, or even coconut oil. This is called bulletproof coffee. And this is a really nice way to give yourself that fat to coat your tissues, as well as slow the drip of caffeine down. So if you don't want to part with your coffee, but it's a little too jittery for you, add some butter, put it in the blender, maybe add some sweetener if you'd like. And this is going to be a great way to slow down that drip of caffeine and give your tissues a little bit of nourishment with the fat. If you're not a fan and you want to do more, plant-based creamer, or you want to get your protein in another way, you could just eat a very small piece of food. So maybe this is a small piece of cheese and an apple. Maybe it's a tiny, tiny bit of yogurt. Maybe it's a hard-boiled egg. We don't want to eat a ginormous breakfast right when we first wake up unless you're super hungry, because the digestive system is still waking up. If you are a kapha person and you feel really sluggish, again, you're going to have more freedom to drink the coffee in the medicinal way that you need. Dr. Vincent Lad, is one of the big names here in the States. He's a beautiful Ayurveda teacher and doctor, and he's got a great recipe for this. And so if you want that recipe, it includes adding cinnamon, cardamom, and all these different herbs to make the coffee less acidic, more medicinal, and a little bit more hydrating. So I'm going to provide that recipe in my free school community if you want to access that. So that's another good way to have your coffee. The number one staple, actually, I'd say the two staples to bring herbs into your coffee to make it a little bit healthier, a little bit less acidic, better for your digestive system, is cinnamon and cardamom. Cinnamon and cardamom. So even if you just add a little bit to your coffee, you're going to notice a big difference. Again, I'm going to provide his recipe on my free school community. So go check it out in the links in the show notes. If you are a Pitta person, Pittas, if they're out of balance, they can experience a lot of digestive issues. So it could be loose stools in the morning, acid reflux, inflammation in the body, okay? So for Pitta people, if you do not want to part with your coffee, add cream, add coconut milk, add full fat cream, and you may want to even add a little Ayurvedic herb that is great for Pitta. In addition to the ones I already mentioned, is rose. Rose is very cooling and soothing. It's a nervous system tonic. It's great for colds and flus, and it's going to just soothe a little bit of that excess heat. So for Pitta people, especially, make sure you're putting cream in your coffee and or eating a little bit of protein with your coffee in the morning. For Vata people, these are people who have a lot of air and ether. Coffee may not be your best friend. And so if you're having your coffee as a Vata person, we want to bring more unctuous protein and fats to your body. We don't want to dry your body out even more or create more nervous system overwhelm. Coffee has a lot of caffeine in it, and so it's going to spike cortisol. It's also going to feed into your adrenals and your nervous system. For you Vatas, explore some herbs. Ashwagandha is a great herb, master herb, I would say, for Vata dosha. This is going to help regulate your sleep. It's going to help calm down your nervous system. It's going to regulate your HPA axis, which controls your stress. If you have too much stress, it's going to help bring that down. Vata people, I really, really want you to make sure you've got fats and proteins with your coffee. Okay, so even if you enjoy it black, please make sure you eat something, a little bit of protein, whatever that looks like, before you have your coffee. Now, if you're like, okay, I just want to get off coffee, or can you give me some alternatives? I still want that frothy, creamy blend. So a lot of people may not go straight to green tea because it's a very different taste. It doesn't have that creamy, beautiful, frothy, blendy stuff that a lot of us coffee drinkers love. So my second favorite drink that I still drink today is chai. Chai is it's almost like India's form of coffee. It's a very, very popular drink in the East, and they have chai wallas, which are people that are on the street corners in India just making fresh chai. It's usually some sort of black tea, black Assam tea, with a mixture of different spices. It could be cardamom, rose, ginger, cinnamon, star anise, black pepper. It just depends on the blends. I'm also going to provide a list of my preferred chai blends that I love. Now, hear me out, because in the States, Luckily, you're going to find a chai latte pretty much on any menu. However, most of the time, these blends are concentrates and they have a lot of sugar and preservatives in them. So things like organ chai, different concentrates, they're not going to be the best because it's not that authentic masala chai. Masala is spiced chai. Chai translates to tea. So you don't want to say chai tea. That's like saying tea tea. So it's chai latte. That means tea latte. So I always recommend, if you want a really good chai, either go to an Indian restaurant and get one, or you can make it at home. So some of my favorite blends have black tea, rose, cardamom, ginger, cinnamon. And what you're going to do is put it on the stove in a saucepan, mix it with water, boil it for a few minutes, add your milk, boil it some more, and then you're going to have this beautiful chai latte. And it's going to have probably about half the amount of caffeine. What's nice with tea specifically is it has L-theanine in it, which is a natural relaxant for the body. So if you're highly sensitive to coffee, you want to find a step-down alternative, I would always recommend chai. My other recommendation is what I talked about before, that Rasa blend. So it's got those adaptogens in there. It still has coffee in there, but it's going to be about a third less. Now, if you want to go completely caffeine-free, you can also look at Dandy blends. So there's a brand called Dandy Blend, or there's a lot of different products out there where they just have dandelion root, and it's a great substitute for coffee. What's great about dandelion is it has a lot of the same effects as coffee. It's a bitter herb. It helps digest things. It's a diuretic, yet it doesn't have that caffeine. It doesn't have that strong acidity that caffeine or coffee would have. Dandelion, burdock, chicory, these are all the herbs you want to look for coffee alternatives. They are all excellent for liver health and digestive health. If you're suffering from digestive issues, liver issues, if you've had any blood panels recently where the liver is taxed, you're usually going to find dandelion, chicory, and some of those herbal blends to help the liver. So having that every day is absolutely beautiful to help with your liver health. Now let's get into the conversation around when you should have your coffee during the day. If you're having 3 cups a day, so if I'm working with a client and they have 3 cups of coffee a day, I'm not just going to take them fully off coffee, especially if they've been on it for a very, very long time. So what we would do is very slowly, very easily ease them off coffee over time. So I would probably start with, okay, you have 3 cups a day. Let's start with 2. Maybe that 3rd cup is a decaf cup. Maybe it's a cup of tea. And so we want to find those replacements when you are getting off coffee, because what can happen, as many of you know, is if you just go cold turkey, you may start to get headaches. You may not feel that sense of routine. A lot of people love their coffee in the morning because it starts this beautiful routine that helps reset their nervous system for the day. However, it's not helpful if you're just throwing a lot of caffeine and fire and too much air into your body if it's already feeling that. We want to keep that routine going. Find a replacement that works for you. Again, you could go to my free school community. It's got a list of resources of all the different things you can do. And I'm always available for a consult call if you want a little bit more support individually. Here are the few keys I want you to take away with when you are trying to shift your coffee habit, make it healthier, or create a longer term plan of eventually getting off coffee. Number 1, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. First thing in the morning, give yourself at least 30 minutes to wake up naturally, if not more. Some people can do more. If you can go outside for a walk first, even better. If you can have a full meal first, even better. But let's start with baby steps. So number 1, give yourself that time to hydrate. Specifically, warm water is even better. Drink a full glass of warm water. Brush your teeth, splash your face. Start to wake up a little bit, maybe go outside. And then you can have your caffeine. Just make sure, again, that you have the creamer in there. You've got protein. Maybe you're having a little bite of something before your coffee. And instead of just rushing to that 2nd cup, I would wait. So you want to let that caffeine run through your blood system for a couple of hours before you have your 2nd cup, if possible. Now, of course, we are the sovereign beings of our own bodies. So all of this information just let it wash over you. Take what resonates, leave the rest. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me. But if you really want to change your life, you're going to have to ask that question of, what is my next right step here? Okay, eventually I want to get off coffee, but I've been addicted to it for 10 years. I've had my coffee habit for 10 years. I have my 2 cups of coffee every day. How do I start to make that change? And we do this in increments, right? And so if you're having black coffee, the first step would be add creamer. Have some protein first. Space out your coffees more, and definitely do not drink coffee after 12 p.m. It actually takes about 12 hours for coffee to really leave the system. It can really disrupt the natural sleep cycle. So if you find yourself not able to go to sleep early enough at night, it's probably because of your coffee. It can really start to affect the adrenal system for that long. I'm not trying to, ignite fear in you. This is just helpful information. And you can ask that question, what is my next right step to get a little bit healthier in my body? So again, give yourself that time in the morning, hydrate first. Then you can have your coffee. Make sure you've got fat in there or you're eating some protein before. And then again, start to cut down the amount of cups you're having. Maybe swap your afternoon coffee for a chai or for a black tea or for a green tea or a decaf coffee. There's many ways we can do this. Something I've been loving recently is my partner just got into the Rise mushroom blend, and it has no caffeine in it. It's just chicory and a bunch of mushrooms, and it's really helped my nervous system because it's got reishi in there. That's a great adaptogen. I love that later in the day. It almost feels like a cup of coffee because it's creamy. It's brown in color. And so you can start to make these swaps. And what's beautiful about the day and time we're living in now is there's so many coffee alternatives out there. It's almost overwhelming. So you have a lot to choose from. It is not how it was 20 years ago when we just had an old, low quality English breakfast tea option or coffee. Things have expanded so much. There's so many options out there. So I want you to know that you have a lot of options. You have a lot of resources at your fingertips, and you don't always have to go to the coffee shop to get your fix. And then just see how you feel. You can start with one thing at a time. Give yourself 2 to 4 weeks to really feel how that feels. And the more we become aware of what we're doing, the more we can make those changes. Allow yourself to love your coffee. I gave myself many years to finally get off of it. I feel way better now, but I wouldn't have been able to make that giant leap at the time. My life was very different then. I was working way more stressful jobs. I was moving around a lot. I needed that at that time. So give yourself permission to love your coffee. Another great thing that's a really nice consideration is to have a coffee meditation. When you drink your coffee in the morning, instead of rushing around, maybe you sit outside on the patio. You take a few deep breaths. This is a part of your ritual. And you really smell the coffee. You taste what it tastes like. You sip it slowly, and you just allow that warmth to travel down your belly. Oh my gosh, you probably won't even need another cup after this. Ayurveda talks a lot about how we eat, to pay attention to the how, sometimes more than the what. So instead of obsessing about, what coffee brand should I be doing? How many cups? These things are all important. But if we don't look at the how, it kind of just erases everything else. So I want you to kind of just reflect for a moment. If you're a coffee drinker, how are you drinking your coffee in the morning? Is it in a stressful environment? Is it on the way to drop the kids off in the morning? And that's okay too, if that's what you got to do. But maybe when you take a sip, you just really allow that warmth to travel down your chest and really just feel, I'm giving myself a little treat. To really feel that gratitude with your coffee. This is a treat for yourself. And if you're just grabbing coffee because you feel tired, maybe just go lay down for 10 minutes. Do a yoga nidra practice for 10 minutes. Even if you work in an office, you can go take a break. You can lay down somewhere for 10 minutes or put your head down for 10 minutes. Do a yoga nidra, do a yoga practice. There's so many healthier alternatives than just pounding that third, fourth, fifth cup of coffee. Especially if you're having sleep issues, especially if you're having digestive issues or anxiety issues, I really invite you to start to shift the way you work with coffee. And that step one is to become a lot more present with the coffee habit that you're having today. This is my love note to coffee. I had to break up with coffee over time. I'm not sure I'll be able to come back, but I've found some beautiful new friends, chai, mushroom blends, other teas that I'm loving. There's so many other plant medicines and herbs out there other than just coffee that you can really enjoy. And so again, if you want those recipes and resources, visit the link below at my free school community, and I will provide all of that for you. And if you want more further one-on-one help, I offer one-off sessions as well as packages for Ayurvedic health counseling to really help you achieve your goals in a really calm, slow, and mindful way that works for us as women. So thank you all for tuning in. I love, love, love my coffee, and I can still love it from afar, and I hope you can too. I'll see you next time.